what gave birth to this organization? What made you guys form it, and what does it do?
Communities First started in 2010, and really it started out of a desire to match our skill set with what the community needs were. A lot of times people look at what the problems are in communities and they can articulate those really well, but they're not necessarily solution oriented or solution focused. So both Glenn and I had some skills and had the ability to persevere at a time where Flint really needed new thought processes and needed new organizations to rise up to the challenges that we were facing. Um,
So, from your point of view, when you looked around, what were the needs that you saw? What were the problems that you saw that you could, that gave you an opportunity to work on them?
We started out with a focus on housing because that was the need that we saw at the time. Glenn previously worked in healthcare and saw that seniors were not being treated their very best in some of the housing conditions that they were living in. And so that's really where we started. We said, hey, let's try to help some of our seniors who have gotten to be at an age where they maybe can't advocate for themselves or they don't have family that can, stand up and advocate for them. And that's where we originally got our start. Our first development was focused around low income seniors. And it was a great learning opportunity, great learning experience. But as we continued in that work, other community needs were exposed, and we saw the opportunity to kind of build upon that initial work to help with other things.
Fantastic. So, what are some of the other things that started to be apparent to you?
Yeah. So the first development was the renovation of a historic school building into housing for low income seniors. And from there, people began to contact us about redeveloping other school buildings, about housing for other populations. There was a need for housing for people that were experiencing homelessness, for people with disabilities, market rate housing, so just tremendous housing needs. Once we got people into housing, we recognized that you can't just put a person into an apartment and label them as unit number 204 and think that they were going to be successful or thrive. We built upon that initial housing work to provide additional services to those individuals. So some of the things are fun activities, bingo, right? Something really super simple, but builds a sense of community within a development. From there, we've done financial education work. We've done training on how to be an advocate, exposing people to, candidate forums for upcoming elections so that they could learn about the candidates that were going to be representing them in office. So the work has expanded and is pretty broad. Broad in the sense that, it's really that holistic approach. And we hear people talk about that and think about what that means, but it literally means that any person that we serve in any of our programs can contact us with a request. And because we have participation in so many different sectors, we can find them the answers that they desire.
You guys have such big goals, and it's so impressive to hear what you do. Do you have funding from like foundations? How do you
Yeah.
do all these things?
When we first started the organization, we did a search of the landscape to see what were the successes and failures of other nonprofits, other community development organizations. And in that research, we figured out one major thing, that we could not only serve one geographic area, so we couldn't serve just one neighborhood and thrive, and that we also had to have very diverse funding. Some of the other programs that we've seen relied on one source of funding, and when that funding source either went away or shifted, the nonprofit ceased to exist because they hadn't built in true sustainability to their model. So our funding comes from a variety of sources, including federal and state grants, local grants, um, corporate sponsorships, individual donors, and also earned income. So it's a very diverse funding funding process for us because we know that if one source goes away, we need to still continue to be able to do the work that we're doing. Many times we've seen nonprofits have grant funded positions, and we wanted our employees to not have to come to work wondering if they were going to have a job the next day, if there was a change in the priorities of a foundation or something like that. So we built that sustainability in, and the positions are core to the mission of the organization. There's not a lot of fluff, there's not a lot of waste, really, so that we can be about the mission of the organization.
That's fantastic. What value do your projects bring to the community?
Wow, that's a big question.
I'm just leaving that very open-ended
Mhm.
so you can be creative with your answer. Like, I mean, I hear so many things. Like, people are. The bingo thing to me is super meaningful.
Mhm.
Like, it gives these older people something to live for and to commune with each other. And
Yeah.
so, like, you bring value in so many different ways.
Yeah. So in our work, we look at things at a macro and a micro level, right? We have to think about systems change, because if we only looked at one person and their situation, we would be able to help that one person, but we wouldn't be able to prevent or address the conditions that led us to having to help that one person. So the greatest value of our work is in having that perspective where we can really look at advocating for policy and systems change, at the highest levels of government and the highest levels of other organizations' policies and protocols, but all the way to, and it's not necessarily a lower level, it's just a different perspective, to, working with an elderly person and providing them with an opportunity to play bingo or an opportunity to see their grandchildren. It's very interesting work that we get an opportunity to do, because we get to see all of those things, and it's really because of our participation on different boards and committees in different sectors that allows us to really see the totality of the landscape, and all of the things that are facing the populations that we serve.
So great. I'm going to ask you the same question I asked Glenn about, like, do you see transformation, and what is it like to see the transformation that occurs from projects that you've implemented in the community?
So there's the physical change that we see in neighborhoods. An abandoned building that we're able to transform for another use is huge, because we're preventing blight, we're beautifying a neighborhood, and then also putting a building back to productive use. And the impacts are great, right? So there's the person that moves in who now has a home, who has stability and can thrive. There's the reduced economic impact, because think about how many tons of waste would go to a landfill if you tore down a large brick building. But at the human level, talking to and working with people and seeing their stories of struggle and difficulty, and then hearing over time how the work that Communities First is doing has been instrumental in providing them with a better quality of life. That's the thing that keeps us motivated every single day. It's not just about the buildings. Right? That's cool, that's interesting, it's nice to see, but when we can be a part of the transformation that happens internal in a person's life, um, it's phenomenal, and it's beyond anything that I would have ever expected on day one when we said, hey, we've got to do something about this problem. It's so much more than that today.
The two words that come to my mind when I was hearing you talk was, like, pride and hope.
Mm-hmm.
And, it's intangible. It's not like a building, but it's, like, so powerful, those things that you're giving to people.
Flint definitely has been resilient, and people talk about that all the time. They talk about, the transition that happened with General Motors, and the lack of availability of jobs at different times. The Roger and Me documentary, and all of the things that we faced, the water crisis, a pandemic. There have been so many times of difficulty and so many times of struggle, and we have become very resilient. But I also think that people have become tired, right? Why do we always have to be resilient as a community? And so, Communities First, and we're not alone. There's other organizations, there's other people, but we're infusing the community with hope, with possibility, and with opportunities for revitalization. And we've been in this work for a time, and we will be around for many, many years to come. And we will continue to see great, positive, amazing change in this community. And we won't become what we once were. We will become a city that is far greater.
That's great, you know, because a lot of people think about the future and what they hope. People that have sat in your chair, and they would be so happy to have it what it was, but you're looking beyond that.
Yeah. It's unrealistic to think that we can go back in time. That's just not possible unless someone's created a time machine, and that creates all kinds of problems from the movies that we've seen where people have tried it. But there's a path forward, right? And people who have vision and can see the possibilities literally are endless. So I just want us to continue to be focused on the city that we can become and not mourn the loss of what was.
What is your very personal dream about moving forward in Flint and all the areas that you're working?
We have a tiny human. So our daughter is 3, and nothing brings me more joy than to see her pick out for her outfit a community's first shirt to wear around the house, and to go about her daily business. And we've seen her, sitting at the kitchen table with a mouse and a computer, and she'll say, "I'm working," you know. Um, my hope and my dream for Flint is for it to be an amazing place to not just raise a child, but an amazing and wonderful place for her to grow up, and for there to be enough here that she doesn't desire to move somewhere else because of what may be perceived to be lacking here. Um, we've seen so many of our colleagues who are fantastic people who have done great things where they've gone, but I don't think that they would have left Flint if they saw what we can see, and if they saw, the potential. And I just wonder what would have happened if all of that talent had been here working towards a better Flint. So my hope and dream is that, kids and families will see Flint as a destination and not a resting place. So the revitalization of Flint is not going to happen in the future. It's happening right now. And there are so many people, as individuals, as nonprofits, as for-profits, that are working towards that goal. So I would just encourage people to be a part of the change that they want to see and stop complaining about what isn't.